All right, guys, today we have a special guest in the house, or virtually rather. Her name is Elizabeth Annika, and she is a touch and intimacy coach for successful men. So she's going to teach you guys and talk to us today about everything involving touch, involving how to be more comfortable, how to look for signs that it's okay to do certain things, and other wonderful things. So Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Harry. I'm very stoked to be here.
Me too. I know it's been we've been trying to get together for a minute now. I know there's been a lot of stuff going on, but I'm glad to finally have you on the show because
yes.
I've never had an intimacy or touch an intimacy coach on my show, and I honestly did not even know that was a thing. So I definitely want to get into how that came about, but I also want to first learn a little about your dating journey, any dating experience that you think are relevant to my audience in particular, and how you got to this point.
So I grew up kind of, like a lot of people did, not having a super sharp understanding of how to do the whole male female dynamic thing. So my road to through dating was definitely like a bumpy one. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I was, my background is actually as a scientist and as a sustainability consultant, but it was maybe 5 or so years ago that one of my dating, one of my partners, a boyfriend that I had, showed a kind of awareness of my physical experience, of my turn on. He showed this attentiveness to the way that my body responded to his, that I was blown away by. Like, it was unlike anything I'd ever experienced through all the myriad of people and kind of dating experiences that I'd been through. A lot of those had been not super inspiring, and this guy was everything but. And I asked him how he did it, and when he told me, and I was blown away by not just the acuity of his prowess, but the simplicity of what he was paying attention to. And when he taught me what he did, I realized that it was learnable and teachable. And I had, all along been learning personal growth, transformational development. I'm a mastered certified neurolinguistic programming coach. NLP. And NLP. And I just decided, all right, this stuff needs to get out to men. Women need to have the kinds of experiences that I just had with this guy. I'm going to teach this. And so that was, anywhere like 2 to 5 years ago was when I started getting into it. And then since COVID has subsided, I've really been opening up the business and inviting more people into my group programs, into my free masterclasses, and into my one-on-one coaching spots.
So what is it? I don't know if you want to get into detail, but you're saying this guy was able to open you up in ways that other guys weren't. So when you had that experience, what did you realize about your past experiences that guys weren't doing in a way that opened you up as much as this guy did?
Right. That's a great way to phrase that question. He was an engineer. So this is what's so fascinating about this guy. He's an engineer. He's highly left-brained. He's very data-driven. His entire, he's essentially like a rocket scientist. And his profession was to sort for ones and zeros, yes or no, black and white. And he did that with me. He translated his ability to sift for data into an intimate space by paying a really close attention to my breath. Right. He used my breath as his compass. He ran little mini experiments on skin to skin experiments on my body with his fingers on my skin. And he just looked is there a 1 or a 0? Does she like it? Does she like it more than what I just did or less? Does she like it more than what I just did or less? And so he learned my body. He learned to learn my body. Other men were going kind of in a formulaic, forward reaching, moving past my comfort level, moving to areas of my body I didn't actually want touched yet, which is kind of an overarching archetypal female experience. They weren't actually, their attention wasn't actually on me. It was on how what I was doing meant about them, or what I was doing meant about how they were performing, or what kind of performance they were doing. This guy's attention was completely on me and specifically on my breath. So
basically by zeroing in specifically on focusing on you and not so much focusing on either what he's trying to get out of the interaction or, what he's seen in various movies or whatever that he thinks should work. like just actually paying attention to you. And even just the nuance, like just saying like your breath.
Yeah.
I know in my experiences, I didn't even recognize it, but like when I'm with women, like I also very much of like, I'm going to slow down and study here. This is that. But it never dawned on me, like the breath really is a telltale sign from a woman if she's enjoying herself, if she's experiencing pleasure, or if it's just like, eh.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's really no way to put your attention on any organism at the level of their breath and not learn volumes about them. And when I offer this is actually, I dedicate one full day in my free masterclass session or a series to the breath. And when guys get this piece, this is what I get emails back about more than anything. They're like, I tried the thing with her breath and oh my God, it was like fireworks. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like fireworks. I'm so happy for you. Like, it's so simple. When you get how simple it is, you stop being overwhelmed by all these other like signals and like, where's her moan and what should I do next? And it's you've got this like conduit of information that's unfallible and unfakeable.
It's interesting because I think the hardest part for guys is we sometimes take stuff and make it so complicated, and it really doesn't have to be. Like it's something as simple as like just the motions of dating. Like people think they gotta call the time, be in front of the face all the time. And it's really like the more patient you are, it actually allows you to at least allows the woman to experience a situation where she gets to have things go at her pace, where it gets to be her choice for things. And she feels more comfortable because it's taking a slower time. And I think just guys, whether it's dating general or even touch, rush a lot of times and don't really care or even not have knowledge of what's going to actually turn her on by doing these various touches.
Right. And I like to say that like women like this feeling of being led, but we don't like feeling rushed or pushed. And this, when you put your attention on the breath, when you go at this kind of pace, you're leading, you're not cajoling. Yes. And there's a ton of spaciousness that opens up, and you can watch a woman's body unfurl to you, as opposed to like close off and you kind of have to like fight your way in. Yeah. This is like her actually like her nervous system gets a chance to sync up to yours and yours to hers. And there's just untold turn on that's in there.
Well, I definitely want to get a little bit more into some of the, we'll say, physical pleasure aspects of touching later, but I definitely want to start out with, obviously, when guys are first meeting women for the first time, there's a whole plethora of touches in the course of from dating to mating to relationships that build up. And many guys don't know those various transitions and things like that. So I kind of want to talk about like, what are some of the touches from early, we'll start just the dating aspect of things, okay? Because there's a lot of times where guys don't know the transitions of dating, stuff like that. So we'll start off with like a woman agrees to a date with a guy. And I've seen a lot of things where guys have been told, oh, you want to go on a date, in order to build her attraction, you want to touch. But that's not really giving like specific details on like what that actually means. So how should a guy go into a date as it pertains to connecting with the woman and then trying to get those first touches?
Okay, cool. Great. I've got a lot on this, and I want to begin by kind of stating what I don't think many people realize, which is that touch begins before physical contact. Like in the messaging process, in the, like, even as, like you literally touched her face when you swiped, right? So you already made a contact, even if it's in like the quantum field. You already made contact with her, and when she messaged you first, if it's on Bumble, or you messaged her first, and you're setting up a date, that's already your place to start touching. And the way that I say to start it, especially for kind of shy or introverted guys, is to show that masculine lead. And you can do that by, being specific about the suggestion of the date. Okay. Pick a place, pick an activity, pick 2 or 3 times. This girl, she's got half a dozen dudes being like, hey, we should hang out sometime.
It's very vague, and it's not.
Hey, we should hang out sometime. If I had a dime for every single time, I would literally have like a tons of those little old-fashioned rolls of coins that I could take to the bank. Yeah. But so show her that you've got the man inside you. Like, show her that you can tune into that, even if you're introverted, even if you're shy. Bring that out. Be like, hey, like, let's go for a hike Saturday at 4 or Monday after work. Like, what works better for you? Start there. Then when the date's coming up, give her a little, make sure you're back on, do whatever kind of like retouch is necessary there by text, and give her a little insider tip. If you're going to meet downtown for drinks, give her a hint about where is a good place to park.
Okay.
Like parking's free on Walnut after 7. Or if you're going for a hike, give her like a couple, like just be like, hey, like it's going to be sunny until, it's going to be sunny, but there's afternoon thunder showers. So maybe like, let's bring raincoats, ? You don't have to be like mansplaining about it. You don't have to be like dogmatic or teachy, but this sense in a woman gives a woman the sense that you have this masculine way of taking care of the perimeter, of like holding an energetic space for her, which lets her feel already that beginning of like, like I can actually like feel like I can rest into something that this man is offering. There's like structure, there's support here that he's bringing to me that other guys aren't.
That's interesting because I'll be honest, I typically teach guys like, hey, like usually I'll set up dates and then I just show up. I don't really do the reconnection part, but I never thought about the part of, is there a way to do the, to check in to see if the date's happening without doing it the weak way, which is, hey, so are we still on for our date today? Blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Versus like, hey, I'm going to now show you that I'm actually looking out for you by saying, hey, in addition to the idea that I thought of for the restaurant that we're going to, I'm also going to give you details that are already planned out on where to park, what the meter costs, et cetera. So you're set. So, and that can actually then protrude and project out to a woman that, oh, he really knows how to handle, any kind of situation, whether it's a date or possibly something more. So that's very great because I never considered that.
Yeah. Like traffic's going to be bad. So I'm going to leave the office early. Can't wait to see you at 6.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Okay. So that's like pre-date, right? You've already begun to show her this like high quality level of energetic touch. Now, when you show up on the date, when you're with this woman, put your attention out. Okay. Like literally put your attention out, off of yourself and onto her. And this takes practice. It sounds like it could be easy, but for most of us, it's not, because we're, especially on dates, we're self-conscious. We're self-referencing, like what does what they think about me mean about me? What does where she's looking mean about me? Like how are we being perceived? This is like a strong, especially for shy guys, this is a strong like indicator, it's like you're sifting for information from the other person about you to let you know how you're doing. Yes. So the cure for this self-consciousness is to keep your attention turned gently outward and on her. And it's actually a much higher quality version of attention than self-referencing and paying attention to her to let you know how you're doing. And what this does for the receiver, the woman, is she feels seen, she feels special, and you won't be spending the date analyzing your every move. You'll actually enjoy this person that you're getting to know, which leads into number 2, which is ask interesting questions. And you can Google, interesting questions to ask on dates. We've all sat down to a date and like the other person across the table goes, so like, where are you from? Or like, what do you do for work? Yeah. And my eyes glaze over and I'm just like, dude, I have lived a life that I could write books about. Like, you have a fascinating creature in front of you and you're going to ask me where I live? Like, get to know me, like learn things about me. Learn interesting things about me, things that actually make you interested as well. Like it's on you to like, it's on you to make your life interesting, and it's on you to find interesting things about other people. Yeah. And then, and if you have trouble doing this, like some of these kinds of questions can be a little bit more personal. They're a little bit harder to get out, get past your larynx. So practice them if you want. Practice them in the mirror. Ask your dog, what was most important to them about the place they grew up. Practice asking this so your brain actually like listens to your voice saying this. It won't be as much of a surprise when you do it in front of someone else.
And guys, I will say this: it might sound like weird, or like, oh, I'm going to be in front of the mirror, or my dog doing this. And that. When I was a teenager, and even then back then I didn't have much in the way of like game or stuff like that, but if it was girls I really, really liked, I would spend like an hour before I go on a date, like looking up questions online, writing them down, memorizing them. So if there were any lulls in conversation or we came to a dead stop, I could pull out one of those to give a pass. So I'm not better at it now. It was definitely
Right.
but the more you practice it, you actually get better at being able to come up with those kind of questions. So even the exercise in and of itself is very, very helpful.
Right. That's great. And one of my favorite quotes is, it's a simple and generous rule of life. Whatever you practice, you will improve at.
Yes.
Right. Like it's so simple to be infuriating, but it's true. And then what you can do with the baller move is when she gives you this like information, these interesting things about her, to use them later in texts. Drop an inside joke about, I grew up in a really boring area of California. There's it's called the armpit of the state. And, you could text the next day, like, oh, Colorado Music Festival is on. I bet it doesn't even hold a candle to the Gilroy Garlic Festival, right? If I've told you that the night before, I'm like, wow, cool. Like, not only did you remember that, you noticed it, you remembered it, and you worked it into a joke. Well done, dude. It's like, it's like, I tip my hat to you. But then I also have some advice around touch. Should we go there next?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
We're on the date. We're having a good time. We're talking. We're laughing. She seems to be vibing. And now the guy's in a quandary because he's like, okay, I know I want to see if I can break this barrier. And what's the school of thought in that in terms of like, do I wait for her to touch me first? If there is a touch that I can do first, what kind should it be to not make her feel creeped out? Because I definitely have had plenty of women friends that'll tell me, the biggest one I hear is this guy on the date wouldn't stop trying to high five me. He just kept saying like, oh, hey, high five, nonstop. And
interesting. Okay. She's like, my shoulder's getting sore. My rotator cuff is actually going to wear out.
Yeah. So I'm curious, so what kind of things should a guy be looking for in terms of touch, in terms of him touching, her touching, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay. So if you're standing next to her, say you're standing next to her in line, walking next to her, sitting next to her, really good types of touch are like gently touching her elbow, kind of like almost like cupping just the elbow joint very lightly, quickly. This is really good standing in line at the deli and your guys are going to order sandwiches. Reach over. Like, what are you going to get? Like, I'm going to get the Hogan. Like, what are you going to get? I'm going to go get food. You wait here. Like just a little touch like that. Lower your bar for like the kind of contact that you're trying to make. And so that there's a lot less of a hurdle to get over to get it. Right. A lot of times we think like, how am I going to work out the first kiss? Like, how am I going to set up the first kiss? You should have been setting up the first kiss 2 hours ago when you were sitting next to her in the booth and you leaned your leg against hers and let her push back. Touch her forearm when she's laughing. Touch her forearm when you're pointing to something. Touch her forearm when you want to move around, when you want to move. Like, hey, let's go over here. If she's sitting down at a table and you got up to leave for some reason, you're coming back, approach her from behind her, put your hand on her shoulder, trail your fingers across, like down from her mid back, off her shoulder as you move around to your seat. Use soft, slower, like high five is high energy. It's energetic. It's a little bit unintimate in the sense that it actually breaks this like close and softer space that you're wanting to get into with her.
Okay.
So get a little closer, slow things down a little bit. And you don't have to do this, this doesn't have to be like dark candlelit corner in like some cozy coffee shop. You can do this a lot more often than you think you can. And especially if I do a visualization, or I suggest men do a visualization process, which I can describe a little later about how they show up on a date.
Okay. This
is really good stuff to like put into that. Other good ones are if she's going through a door, or if you're guiding her through a doorway or a hallway, put your hand like palm open on her lower back and give like 3 seconds of like kind of consistent contact, not pushing. You don't want to like topple her over. This lower back spot is actually it's an amazing nexus of meaning in it. Number one, a lot of sexual energy lives in the low back.
Really?
A lot of sexual energy lives in the low back in like Kundalini and like Tantra spaces. The low back is like the genesis of turn on. If like it's like you imagine like it's your root chakra, it's like your sexual center, etc.
Okay.
But it also signifies protection and security and safety. For when you give a woman touch there, she's like, ooh, but at the same time, this is like amazing double, win-win.
As the guy is doing these light touches, I at this point, I know that women are very conscious of when they're being touched. So even though it's like, as we're on a date, it's not playing out that she's recognizing these things are happening, but like what's actually internally going on in a woman's mind when a guy is doing the touch that you're talking about?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Touch, the arm touch, the whatever. Like, I mean, obviously she knows this is happening to her. Like, what
right.
is I'm feeling about that in terms, because I know introverted guys are going to be like, but even if I do those things, is she still going to be creeped out, or is she actually going to like those touches, or is it building towards something? Like, what is she thinking and feeling when I'm doing these things?
Oh, that's such a sweet question. Yeah, I can feel the care that men have like about the female experience kind of in this question. I've mostly dated introverted and shy guys. Like I've mostly dated guys, and the guys I've dated have not had a lot of like quote unquote game. Their touch, I could tell that it was genuine, but there was also an element of awkwardness to it. Yeah. Like I was in my head, I was like, oh, he's leaning his leg against me. Like, oh, like he's leaning his leg against me. It's that moment. Yeah. There is a consciousness, but there's also a sweetness. That's the thing. There's also a sweetness. And like, even if it's like some people, a lot of them are men, assume that if there's any element of awkwardness, it's shot, that it's like it's a lost cause. And I don't think that's the case. Like that, to me, that has never been the case. Women tell me that they would love men to ask them, what kind of touch they like. This is a question women don't get a lot. Yeah. So back to your initial question is like, what's going on in her mind? Yes, there can be totally an element of like, oh, like he's moving up to touch my hand. Doesn't mean I'm not going to give it to him. Right. Doesn't mean I don't also want to grab his hand. Like I've sat on so many dates where I've not been able to, I've really wanted to reach out and touch. And I've also had my own anxieties and uncertainties. So like, there's a lot of the men's dating experience that I feel like I've lived into over the course of my like bumbling experience, like pun intended. And I just encourage you to like, keep your attention out, be your own best friend, like be your own best friend, soften your expectations. Don't be a dick to yourself, and keep the thread of genuineness alive. Genuineness will lead you to the kind of connection and to the kind of intimacy that you probably are wanting. Yeah. So don't get up in your head about it. Don't get complicated. Even if she knows that you're new to the touch thing, or it's a first time for you, like it doesn't mean that she doesn't want it.
Well, it's interesting. It's good to hear from a woman that the awkwardness doesn't necessarily take away from her enjoyment of the experience. If anything, it's almost like, this guy's trying to be careful. So just the fact that alone could be its own thing in terms of, oh, he's like trying to make sure he's not making me uncomfortable. That's kind of a sweet thing, even if it's in an awkward situation.
Yeah. And then, as things start heating up, like, after first date, second date, third date territory, and you're back at your house or her house or something, don't forget, like, keep your attention out on her. Start picking up on her breath. If you haven't already, like come to my masterclass, learn like just how to observe this quality that everyone has. Yeah. And stay away from what I call the bullseye areas, what I call the tap, which is tits, ass, and pussy. Like stay away from that at first. Like every guy she's been with has tried to go there way too soon. So be anybody but those guys. Yeah, definitely. And actually I wonder too, like, so I read I was on Reddit the other day, and this guy was saying that he was on his fourth date and he had just, I think just given her a kiss or something like that. And it was like, and my thought is, I was that guy back in the day that waited that long also. And this guy's waiting 4 days. And I'm like, that's a long time. So a guy that's doing the touch that you're talking about on the date, he's doing those touches. Obviously, by doing those, it's going to hopefully give him some kind of read or indicator. So I guess the question is twofold. A, at what point for men out there will the women start trying to touch them back? And then how can they know
if and when to go for these, we'll say, more escalated touches, whether it's a kiss, whether it's like putting the arm all the way around her or stuff like that?
You are looking for her to give touches back. And if she's not, I strongly recommend don't make that about you. Don't get up in your head about it. Just kind of keep your attention out, keep finding information out about her, make her feel seen, scale back to more, interesting questions if you're really kind of like off kilter there. The first kiss is the really good way to tell if a woman wants to kiss you. And this is assuming you're kind of like already within arm's reach and like kind of an embrace of some sort. Yeah. So this can be like, the end of a date, you can be moving, give a hug and kind of like let it extend, hold a little longer, pull back a little bit and look at her face. If she's looking, between your eyes and your lips or at your lips, this is usually a sign that she's kind of like interested in or ready for a first kiss. And, I teach a whole thing on how to do the first kiss and like where to touch and how to touch on it. But the big piece is, that you've built yourself a stepping stone so that it doesn't come out of nowhere. For first kiss stuff, like a lot of attention gets put on it and a lot of hype. It's given this disproportionate status of like importance. I can't up to it like all the movies. Yeah. No. Yes. It's actually Disney's the problem here. Like we blame porn for a lot of like touch misconceptions, like when it comes to sex, but I would say, like the media, man, there is never a bad first kiss in a movie. Never ever get a bad first kiss in a movie. And how many of us have had bad first kisses?
Or
everyone or bad totally. And I also want to share that, I on at least two occasions when a guy has asked to kiss me, I've said no, thank you, or like not yet. And gone on to date and make out and be in long relationships with these people, have amazing intimacy later on. Like there isn't really, you don't have to like conform to the assumption that if a first kiss didn't happen when you were trying to make it happen, that it's off the table forever. Yeah. You don't have to conform to this, deciphering, like I need to figure it out myself. If you're a shy dude and you're introverted and your body language reading skills aren't as sharp as you'd like them to be, then work on them over time, but give yourself the crutch of asking or checking in. Yeah. One of my favorite questions is like, what kind of touch do you like? Just ask a woman that. You'll make her heart melt.
As it pertains to the kiss thing, I actually do want to ask about this because I'm recognizing I'm 39 now, and I'm recognizing that I'm of a generation where we were honestly taught in terms of if you try to directly ask or request specific things, it could be considered a turnoff. It can ruin the mood. And one of those things was the kiss, where I've had women tell me, I don't want to do just ask me, can he kiss me? I just want him to just know when it's time to go. And I know for introverted men, that's a really hard concept because we're kind of like, if we really want to respect the woman and treat her right, we want to make sure that she's ready for this thing. So what you're saying here is that you actually didn't mind being asked and that did not deter you, whether it was a yes or no in that moment, from wanting to kiss them later on. So right. I guess the question is, like, in this day and age, is it a problem to ask for that situation? Can it wreck the mood? Or is it a thing where more women are actually wanting guys to ask them without there being like a consequence of it not possibly happening or whatever?
Yeah. So there's two places that I want to highlight here. And one is that you as the man, you as the introverted or shy guy, or you have feelings too. Like you have a stance here that's important to recognize and in some ways attend to and protect. So if you are anxious about touching another person, a woman, if you're anxious about moving in for that kiss, that's a psychological state that's doesn't feel good, doesn't feel sexy to her, isn't genuine, it's not intimate, it's not connected. You are causing you're in a sense like asking yourself to know something you don't yet know in order to give somebody else this experience that you perceive or predict or assume that they want to have. Okay. So number one is if you have doubt to the point of feeling anxious, then ask, because for a number of reasons, which I'll get into in a second. But number one, first and foremost, is that you matter too. And I don't want a man standing in front of me, like with daggers in his mind about whether or not he can kiss me if he could find out just by asking me.
Okay.
And yes, like that's not the, the James Bond move is not, hey, like, the playful way that I suggest guys ask at the end of a date if they want to find out is, so, is this a hug date, a handshake date, or a kiss date?
Ooh,
like,
nice.
where is this on the spectrum? Like, and it gets playful. It kind of speaks to this like kind of high school, middle school, like, moment that most of us kind of experienced. Yeah. And it's a way to ask, right? So if a guy asks me that, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, he's not the James Bond of charisma. He's not the smooth, suave person. But number one, that means he's actually showing up as himself. He's not this like practiced, polished like person. Yeah. That right. And so, but then also know that you get to learn over time, right? Body language is a language, and just like a language, you can learn it. So you can go into that moment before you ask this question thinking, all right, I think she's into a first kiss, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to ask. You check out your hypothesis with the data you get back, and you corroborate. You do it again next time, you corroborate. You get to learn kind of where your intuition matched her reality. And this you get to take to the next date and the next date, the next date, right? So don't oversell the importance of the first kiss to her or you. Like treat it with, give it some oomph, make it special. Cause like, dude, why not? Like a first kiss is like, can be knee buckling. And I won't lie. Like, I think there is a real attractive quality to it being a smooth process. Mm-hmm. Until you get there, give yourself this crutch. When I run workshops with men and women together, and I suggest, or the men say like, oh yeah, I sometimes ask the woman if she wants to be kissed. I never hear women say that sucks. Women are like, the women in the groups that I've run, I can say are like, oh my God, I would love that. I would love it if a guy asked me that. Like it would make me feel like I'm not an object. Like I actually I'm part of this. And later on, when it's getting more intimate, like what kind of touch do you like? Yeah. That's an entirely reasonable question and a sexy one.
Let's imagine it's probably kind of awkward for them too. Like they go on all these dates and it's like, they probably guys are going to already want to kiss them time and time again. So it's like when they do meet that guy where it's like, hey, like he's not rushing into it. He's actually asking me, I'm feeling like respected in this space. Like I can't imagine how that would be a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you have to understand that she's also wondering like if there's going to be a kiss, like if she's into you or she's not sure if she's into you and she might be like, she's also wondering how the date's going to end. And like, are you going to go move in for a hug that's going to kind of turn into an awkward kiss? And like, are you, her attention is on it as well. So speaking, like making it explicit and speaking to it actually shows that you have so much more presence than a lot of dudes, because a lot of dudes are just they're gonna skip, they're gonna like a stone on water. They're gonna try and skip over the awkwardness of that moment and just kind of move into something, which in itself is awkward. Whereas speaking to it, like, hey, like, is this a hug or a kiss or a handshake date? It shows her you have this stance.
So now we go from obviously the dating side of things to, okay, there's a transition between you're dating the person, you've done some touches, maybe you've had a first kiss, and now we're trying to get to more serious activities. I don't know how you feel on the whole, like when at what date those higher touches should happen. But how can a guy best read when a woman's ready for that, and then when she's ready for those levels of touches that are going to lead to bedroom activities?
So yeah, starting like if you're like, I just go kind of like first kiss, the next logical place is kind of like a makeout, like we would say maybe second base is kind of a makeout, which honestly is like one of my favorite places in the whole intimacy realm. And like, if you get a really good makeout on date 2 or 3, just be so stoked, like celebrate that shit. Like it's so hot for everyone involved to have like a makeout that doesn't actually all like culminate in intercourse. There's all this like endorphins that get riled up, and you get so much like anticipation of the next time.
And also validation, like, oh, this person really likes me enough to want to like make out with me for this long a time. Like,
right.
It's great. Like, this is amazing.
right. So with a good makeout, and I talk about this again in the masterclass, but like you stay away from those bullseye areas. Maybe give them just a hint that you're interested in more. I like touching. I like doing a lot of like. I say forearm touch on the like outside forearm touch for, public stuff. And then when it's a little bit more intimate, like move on the inside of her forearm, start like put your hand, give a little squeeze on her legs. Like, this can be a little like a bit of a tricky move from say you're on the couch and you want to end up, moving to the bed or something. At some point you gotta, at some point
guys, real talk is like, okay, like, if I do this thing here, if I even try to suggest going to the bedroom, is this makeout going to be over, let alone any other thing is going to be
right. Right. No, it's such a funny place. Right. And then also the moment where you need to take off the pants, like in any like kind of intimate space where it's time to go from pants on to pants off. There's just a time where you have to like, unbutton them, move up, like take them all off. You just have to kind of make peace with that. And again, the more presence you have around with yourself, the better. In terms of signs, like, again, it's never too early to start focus. It's not to like use her breath as your compass. So don't assume that it has to be only when you're in bed and actually like naked that you start doing that. You put your attention on her enough to gauge her breath, to track it. Do these little, like do light and little touches on places that are already exposed. Like use the backs of your hand, use the back of your fingers rather, on any exposed skin. Because what this does is like you're by nature of the kind of touch that it is, you're already being lighter. Okay. You're giving her an experience of turn on that starts way earlier than the pieces that that you think that you have to turn on to make her want you. The organism of her body already starts to run a lot of turn on energy. Touch her back, touch over her bra strap, like give it a little tug. Don't take it off yet. Keep on moving down. Like give her these places where you're showing her that if you were another dude that she's dated, you would have already been grabbing her tits, but you're not going to do that because you have way more self-control and way more attention to her turn on than anybody she's been with so far.
She's already that's going to happen.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And we live, and this is the trippiest thing, like what I wish men knew is that women, our first makeout was like in high school in the locker room, and it was all about gropey stuff, right? Like we were being groped, like we were groping him where we thought he would want it. He's groping us where he thinks we want it. And we're like not ready for it. So we're trying these like, body language pins. Like we're like pinning, our arms next to our breast so that, we don't get touched there. This is what we're used to. We're used to men, even though they love us and they really want to be turning us on. We're used to men pushing boundaries that we're not vocalizing, but we think that we think that you'll get it because we're using our bodies to show you. And like
this at all. And
right, exactly.
A good portion of my program is telling guys, be patient, and also really look at the passive language women are using, because you might think that they're ready to do something, but if you really pay attention to how they're moving, if they're saying certain things a certain way or moving a certain way, that means that they're not ready for that step. And it's like, that's the main thing I push in my show, is that you got to learn to read women, because it's a different way of, I say amongst women themselves, they use passive language, but they also pick up on other women's passive language. So they can speak to themselves that way, but they're doing the same thing for us, thinking we get it, but we speak more directly, and we're all up to now, and we don't really get, like, just because a woman is with us doesn't mean she wants to do all these things right away.
Right.
And that's the
right. That's so well said, Harry. So well said. And what you show her when you move past the bra strap and don't try and, take it off right away, is that she can actually trust you to open more of herself to you, physically. Like, we'll just speak physically right now. She can trust you to open more, because you're not gonna You're not going to try and plant a flag, not going to try and seize the nation before she's ready. And this, I can't even, I wish I could just beam out to men like what this means for women, because it gives this is the unfurling, right? Like this is the actual like genuine opening of a nervous system to another, is when it's like, and she has like the ganglia of neurons that signal whether she's safe or not are actually getting a different, are getting reprogrammed when she has this experience with you that she's never had with another guy. So men have this opportunity to give women an experience of touch and turn on like we've never had before.
Well, it's interesting because speaking of that, there was a part of I went to your website. There's a part where you talk about, you ask men a question. You say, have you ever received mixed messages from a woman in bed? She seems to be enjoying herself, but then she closes her body off to you, moves away, or just lies there. So as it pertains to the bedroom stuff, what kinds of touching or activities that a man does would result in a woman doing that to where she's actually now basically rejecting the guy in the moment?
Yeah. So a lot of what we've just been sort of like the kind of touch we've just been kind of talking about at a higher level will do this. And here's the interesting thing is that, she's there. She probably wants intimacy with him, right? She probably wants to be there and be getting naked with him. Like, let's assume like that, it's completely consensual. And she's like into this guy and she wants to be there, but he takes his hand and he goes like under her pants and like onto her crotch, right? They've just been kissing. And that's his like first move toward, between her legs, her genitals. Way too soon. Her whole body is like, oh no, like no. And so she like crosses her legs or like turns away, keeps kissing him because she wants something to happen. Doesn't want that to happen. He like the breasts and the ass and the pussy are the place where this gets elicited. So if you see that, if you see her pinning, if you see her rolling away, if you see her, kind of like a big sigh and then ending it, a big sigh and then like kind of turning over and being like, okay, like I think we should, probably get moving on or whatever.
Or like backing the hand away sometimes, like, oh no.
Yeah. Like moving the hand like that. This is the way that I train men how to touch me is I just like, if I don't like where they're touching, I just move their hand where I want it. And I just give a smile. Like I let them know that they're not in the doghouse. Like this isn't a rejection. This is just a redirection.
And it's interesting because I've literally had it before where like, say, like to your point, I might be trying to go for like a specific part and the woman just gently just kind of takes her hand away and moves it to another part. Yeah. But then like 5 minutes later, she then moves it back to the part that I was trying to get to. But it's like, there's a buildup to that she needs in order to get comfortable with that part.
Right. Exactly. And this is the thing is like, we want that touch eventually. We want there, like we want all of that and more. We just don't want it first and only. And so turn on everything else. She's got a whole amazing body of curves and folds and touch and like skin and places and delight. Like 85% of her is not the places that you're first thinking you need to touch.
Yeah.
You need to touch the rest of it first. And while you're doing that, you get this chance to just focus on her breath, moving your hands slowly, doing what I call finger trails along her body, backs of the fingers, fronts of the. Notice her breath. Because this is going to tell you volumes when you get to the later stages about how to move. And what I say is like when you're getting into the like the real like the clit and the turn on stuff, move so slowly and so lightly at first that you can track what her breath is doing for each centimeter that you're touching before you actually start increasing pressure and moving faster and stuff like that, because inadvertently men touch way faster and way harder than women really want at first. Yeah, and this is where I say, slow down, lighten up, focus on her breath. Like just get that mantra in your head, slow down, lighten up, focus on her breath.
Now, I assume you probably teach this in your masterclass. I don't need you to give away the whole game, but like, what would be like one part of a woman's body outside of her main sexualized areas that men would be surprised can actually be what I call like the starter motor to get her aroused?
Her back.
Okay.
Her back. Yeah. Like under the shirt, over the bra, above the pants. You don't have to be naked to do it. touch her shoulders, her backs of her shoulders, touch her mid back lightly, touch that lower back. And you can even do like a small back massage on her sacrum. Pretty much, any woman, just because of the way that our pelvises are structured, have some lower back tightness. So if you can find those little sacral bones and put pressure there and then move your thumbs out like this, that is a baller spot to massage.
Really?
You also, oh yeah. And the muscles there's muscles that are like so small that you actually, if you're good with anatomy, you can actually get like right on it. And I mean, this takes a little bit more finesse, but if you work there, you can really start to hone in on her breath, because she'll probably moan. She'll be like, oh my God, nobody's ever done that before, except for my massage therapist. And then you can go into bigger strokes, like move up her back. A massage is a great way to touch a back in like the beginning stages, because it's still large movements and it's a little bit stronger. So you don't have to be in such a soft and intimate, like place yet, but you can move to that. So you can start with just like give her a shoulder massage and then trail your fingers down, lift up just the bottom of her t-shirt and like, give that little a waist or lower back a little love, and then up the rest of her back. Yeah.
Okay. I also found just my experience, like the side parts here, like not the line leading to her vagina. Like some reason these areas here are like just meter great to go to. And
that you're talking like side body, like on the
like the pelvis, like the pelvis leading to your like that part, those two parts right there. I don't know why, but women seem to really like it. So
yes, cool, good. I love that one.
Yeah. Now, also on your site, it's interesting because obviously this is a site for guys to help figure out how women like touching, but you also mentioned that you help men explore how they themselves like to be touched. And I think most guys were kind of like, hey, we have that one main area and we're good. But like, what other kinds of touch do you feel men need to know about themselves as it pertains to their own pleasure that can also then help with her pleasure?
You have an amazing body that also has like a lot of potential for pleasure. And the stories that I love about my clients or for my clients are when they have synced up with a woman to have like this really juicy experience of intimacy, they often get the same kind of touch from her that they're giving, which is like this slowed down, full body, finger trail experience, or light scratching on their forearms or the scalp of, so many of us have a love language that is predominated in touch, and we don't get enough of it in our lives and relationships invariably. So if you can give a guy this experience of like touching the rest of his body, you'll turn on more of him, just like you'll turn on more of her.
Yeah.
So what I suggest is for men to kind of zoom out, if you can, like literally like use your brain to actually like zoom out from the experience, just being focused on your genitals and her genitals, zoom out on her and zoom out the same on you, and invite her to touch more of you. Because unfortunately, the same kind of media/porn impression that men have of women, where they just want these certain areas touched and hard and fast and for a long time, women have a similar like impression, like, oh, like I just have to touch his junk. Like I just have to touch his junk. I have to like give him this. I have to give him this. Like she also doesn't necessarily realize that you have other places that have so much potential for pleasure in you as well. So if you don't know those yet, don't be hard on yourself. Like that is okay. Like I didn't know that the rest of my body was an amazing like organ for turn on until I started playing with it either. So just because you don't know it yet doesn't mean it's not so.
That's true. And honestly, as guys, we're not really taught to really explore those other parts outside of, there's no thing like, hey, what about your arm or your neck? Like until we get into actual situations, a lot of times we just don't know if those other things, even on us, can be erogenous zones that can also, cause us to feel things stronger.
Totally. And like what I really love about like my experience of intimacy with a man is introducing him to other kinds of touch that he hasn't realized. Like I have usually pretty like decent nails, and I love like giving men little like scalp massages or like playing with their hair. We all like this is like a kind of a parasympathetic nervous system kind of norm, is that most of us really like having the back of our neck cupped and held. like a lot of us like light touch here. So I honestly have blown men's minds without even taking off their pants, just by giving them this like warm, feminine, caring experience of touch that doesn't have to do with, genitals.
I'd love for you to go more in detail about your masterclass, how it helps guys, what you're teaching it, just so if people are interested, they can check that out.
Yeah, totally. Sure. Thank you. Right. So I run a free masterclass every month. It's called the ABCs of Intimate Touch. So that's not just cute and cutesy. It's actually A, arousal, B, breath, C, consent and communication. So a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about here, right? With arousal, you're learning kind of the way to sort of navigate your path from no touch to full touch. Breath, I'm teaching how you can turn your attention onto her breath and what kind of potential that has. C, consent and communication. We're talking about like how to have these conversations, or if to have these conversations in the post-Me Too landscape. And so I do this for free every month. That'll be at least until the end of the year. The next one is on July 6th, 7th, and 8th. I'm running it at 6 p.m. Mountain Time each night. It's usually an hour or an hour and a half. And you can find the link to sign up on my website, which is howtotouchwomen.com. There's a button for free training, so you can get there that way. Or if you want to sign up for next week's directly, you can go to howtotouchwomen.com/July. And it's wonderful. We do it on Zoom. What's so awesome about this is that men really, really, actually really like talking about touch. I learn so much from the space, and it's a really, really cool group that comes each week. And then, if you want to work with me deeper or longer, or, in a more concentrated format, I have a program that I'm running later this summer called The Art of Touch, and also one-on-one work. So I do most of my stuff remotely, from anywhere in the world you can join. And I'd love to have you. It's a really, really great space.
I'm definitely sitting here like, because I'm always like, for dating conversations in general, and I'm trying to get into do more group stuff and see how that's laid out. So that's something I'd be like, I want to check that out, because I'm always down for those kind of conversations in general. So.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah.
And I'll leave a link to, if you're watching this on YouTube, guys, I will leave a link for all the stuff you just mentioned in the description. So you can click on it. Cool. You can go to the site, you can sign up for it. Because if you like this interview, I'm sure you'll learn even more so by checking out one of her workshops. So awesome. So this has been really great. And I appreciate you so much for coming on and giving us an education. I learned some things too. I'm like, oh, wow, I can use this in my own daily stuff as well. Because I'm always
cool.
Something else. I teach this stuff. I'm also a student. I continue to study up on new things and learn new things. And this has been very, very insightful. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
You're welcome. Can I give one more tip, like an actual hands-on strategy thing? Or it's not hands-on exactly. It's mind on. It's brain on. Yes. And this is something I really, really, really want to. Well, first of all, I want to let you know that anything that you start that's unfamiliar at first is gonna feel weird. Oh. So don't if you're a guy who's kind of getting into this territory of touch, please don't be hard on yourself at first. It's gonna feel weird the first 3 or 5 times you try it, with your dog or with your cat, and then on a date when you're asking these questions. So what I suggest you do is take time each day. Give 5 minutes to a really specific visualization practice. And this is neurologically, these are neuroscientists who study how visualization creates new neural pathways, which is that's all what behavior changes, is just new neural pathways becoming the default neural pathways. And so what I suggest you do is, if you're gearing up for a date or gearing up for the second date, say, and you really want that makeout, spend some time with your eyes closed, create a little image, like a little movie of how you would like it to go. You and the woman noticing it from the third person, as if you're watching a movie of this date unfold the way you would like it to unfold. Do that, let it play through once, twice. Notice how you would be showing up, how you would be feeling, what you would be doing if you were going to act the way you could design yourself to act on this date with this woman. And then take your stance and step into the you that's in the movie. So you're looking through the eyes of the guy that's playing this movie out, and then play it out 1 or 2 more times. Do that, spend 5 minutes doing that in the morning or before a date. This will change what your brain allows itself to believe is possible. So if you actually give some time to create a new neural pathway, your dating experience and your whole life experience can change for the better. So I hope that that's useful and it's something tactile and specific.
That's so true. Because I definitely find in my journey that the more I started thinking positively about myself and also about the girls I was going out with and just saying, hey, I'm not a bad dater. I can actually decide I'm going to be a good dater. And just even just having that visualization, that mindset of I'm going to change this and say these things, it really does have an effect on how you even present yourself on dates. Because now you're saying, you've been practicing saying to yourself, I'm great, and I'm going to look good. And you have that in your head to where you can actually do that.
Yeah. And truly, like I know to your audience and the introversion and the shyness is kind of one of the markers. And I really, really want to impress that you have a superpower. You have a superpower in your personality if you treat it as such. And because your attention is, it's more of a commodity, and like you protect a little bit more, like how you spend you play out in social situations, your attention is by definition more valuable. So reframe that so that it's not a limitation and it's actually a superpower, because the presence that you show up with will be so much more potent and so much more powerful, and it will be palpable to the women you date.
Very, very good. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
You're so welcome.
And guys, feel free to leave comments down below if you have any questions you'd like us to answer in any potential future interviews or whatever like that. I'm always down to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. So definitely do that. But thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
And we'll talk to you guys later. Peace.
Bye.